I'm thinking of calling her right after my afternoon nap. I'm thinking of sending her flowers right after Bonnie gets back. So many fishes left in the sea, so many fishes, but no one for me. I'm thinking of hooking a love soon after supper is done.
Hi, I'm Rachel.
And I'm Matt.
And this is
We are All Kosh.
a Babylon 5 rewatch.
Rachel's most anticipated episode yet.
I like this episode. I actually think about this episode a lot. I say that a lot, but I think a lot. So I don't know. I have a lot of quantity of thought to devote to a lot of different things. So this is one of those ones that when I think about this series, I think, wow, that was a bold episode. That was a bold choice. The ending specifically
Yeah.
is a bold choice for 1993. And I was thinking about that this morning when we were getting our coffee and getting ready to record. I was like, wow, I can't believe they put that on TV. It's kind of like there's a couple episodes of Forever Night where we're like, wow, I can't believe they had what amounts to a transgendered character in 1997. Or there's another one where we tackle AIDS. And there's a couple other where we tackle, some allegorical things where vampirism is used as a metaphor for societal issues, kind of the way Star Trek uses aliens to talk about different things. And wow, that was kind of bold. And then I thought, you know what, honestly? This episode would be more bold if they made it now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we'll talk about that when we get to the end. It kind of reminded me of like Tu Wong Fu, a movie that we couldn't make now.
Oh, yeah, definitely not.
It'd be way too progressive. And that's a 90s movie?
I don't know that it would be too progressive, but the way that they told that story might be considered heavy-handed now.
Well, okay, so yes, that's a very good point, is that sometimes this is an important point to make. Anytime you're venturing into classical media, and by classical I mean anything from like 2000s and earlier.
It's vintage if it's more than 25 years old, right?
Yeah, well, so 2000s and... Anyway, any media made more than, say, 5 years ago, really, is the conversation changes so quickly. The language that we use changes really rapidly, too. And you can't look back at these and go, oh, my God, I can't believe they were so terrible.
Right, you can't judge them by this instance standards.
Right. Because the way we speak about things has changed. So you have to kind of dig and be like, what were they trying to say? And did they just not have the language? Or were they... You really have to think, wow, okay, that felt like a miss, but was it a miss? Or was it at the time? Were they really just striking into the dark? Because that path had not been trodden yet. Mm-hmm. The purpose of the end of this episode is to illustrate that we are not a monolith. Humanity is not a monolith. And I think that comes across. And however you interpret the end now, what they were saying was you can't have a single demonstration of
Earth's dominant religion because there is none.
There is none. Earth's dominant religion is diversity, effectively.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really important message. I think it's a really beautiful message. And I've always enjoyed the end of this show.
Mm-hmm.
And
And I like that we're still panning past people when the camera fades out,
yeah,
implying we don't get to see everybody.
right.
So the group is as large as your imagination can conjure.
Correct. And do we display every other culture, every other alien culture as a monolith? Yes.
Yes.
Yes. But you know what? Shh. It's okay.
There are realistic constraints
Yes.
on the amount of story that you can tell and keep your audience engaged.
Right. And one of the thing, this is a little bit human propaganda. Babylon 5 is a little bit humanity propaganda.
Oh, yeah.
In that one of the primary themes, I'll say, is that humanity is not a monolith, that we have not striven towards conformity, strived, sought
Striven.
out, that
Yeah.
our diversity is our strength. That's one of the themes. And so the fact that they're highlighting that our diversity makes us unique and it makes us special and it makes us strong is important.
Mm-hmm.
And if they then don't go, well, everybody's diverse, look, if everybody's special, nobody gets to be special.
Right.
I don't care. It's fine. It's fine. You had 48 minutes to tell this story. Okay,
Right.
the Minbari have like one thing, and the Centauri have like one thing, which apparently is getting drunk
Right.
and passing out.
To get enough context to portray all the other aliens as diverse as humanity,
Yeah.
you would need like a semester-long course on a survey of Centauri culture and
Yeah.
history,
Yeah.
a survey course of Minbari culture and history, and then after going through hundreds of hours of coursework to learn the culture and history of each alien race, then we could have a 1 hour long episode with a lot of references to the hundreds of hours of cultural education.
Right. So it's fine.
Yeah.
We're just going to. So what we're talking about, of course, is Babylon 5, Season 1, Episode 5, The Parliament of Dreams. Fucking finally. I knew this episode was coming.
every episode. I think Parliament of Dreams is next.
It's kind of like when we were doing Forever Night, and I was like, oh, the next one is going to be, I forget, like, I thought Close Call was coming forever, and it took forever and ever and ever to get to it. It's fine. It's because it's an anticipated thing, and to me, the thing I anticipate is always next, because that's how my brain works. And so it wasn't next, but it was eventually, and so here we are. I love how we open, which is Garibaldi being a little bit religiously obtuse. I don't know how I want to put this, because the guy's like, it's my ceremonial knife. I am a pilgrim here for the sacred day of Chudok, which implies that there's more happening. This is like a symposium. It's like a convention, religious convention. You can go to whatever. Our main characters are going to go to the ones put on by the ambassadors,
Right?
because those are the ones where their time is best spent and their time is not infinite. Could they have split up and maybe visited a couple of the non-aligned worlds? Maybe they did. I don't know. Ivanova looks like she's having a fucking great time. I feel like Ivanova was the convention goer that was up at 6 a.m. and then stayed and went to every single panel until like midnight, then got drunk with the Centauri and then passed out and woke up at 6 a.m. to hit all the rest the next day. So headcanon, Ivanova did all of them.
Oh, yeah.
She had a great week. Because she looks like she's having a great week. And Ivanova deserves a great week. Because she doesn't have her hair up in her braid at all ever in this entire episode. She's finally got her hair down. And she, especially at the Centauri one, she looks like she's having a really good time. So headcanon is she had the best week of her life. And so we're just going to, I will brook no argument on that. That is literally what happened.
She took a whole week of PTO.
Yeah. She just showed up in her uniform because it's the only dress clothes she owns, and it's fine. It's fine. Yeah. So they open with
that's her religion.
Oh yeah, her
duty.
Her duty. Well, I mean, if you lost everything for duty, you too would feel beholden to your duty. Anyway, Garibaldi is talking to this guy, and he's holding this knife that doesn't not look like they made it from Hobby Lobby supplies, but a little bit does look like they made it from craft store supplies.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's fine. It's a ceremonial knife. Just let it go. And the guy's like, you don't understand. This is my ceremonial blade. I am a pilgrim here for the sacred day of Two Dog. And Garibaldi's like, oh, this knife right here? Yeah, I don't care if you're the fucking Easter Bunny. You don't get to bring this knife onto Babylon 5.
Okay, so in my head, this whole exchange is a paperwork problem, like declaring it. And we can tell as Garibaldi's handling this blade is not sharp.
No.
It's dull all the way around. So it's not actually dangerous.
Right.
And we've seen them eating. They have knives. Blades are allowed in the station.
Yeah.
For the appropriate use. And so in my head, the conversation before the camera cuts on is something like, dude, I think you had a problem on your paperwork. You declared this as a martial weapon. Well, it is. Okay, but you're carrying it here for the purpose of like religious ceremony. If you declare it on the customs paperwork as a ceremonial artifact,
yeah,
you're fine. You can bring it. But you have it declared as a martial weapon.
Yeah.
I cannot let you bring
so he checked
something
the wrong
that's
box.
He checked the wrong box, but he checked the wrong box because according to his religious traditions,
this is a blade.
He has to consider this a martial weapon.
Yeah.
And so on the paperwork, he considers it, he declares it as a martial weapon.
Okay, so this is a systematic problem. This is a bureaucratic problem.
It's a bureaucracy problem.
Yeah.
It's the butting of heads of religion and bureaucracy.
Which is why we have our religious ceremonies happening right now. The only thing I can think of when Garibaldi's like, I don't care if you're the fucking Easter Bunny, is your Mickey Mouse is a stupid dope from Enemy Mine.
Yeah.
Yeah. When Jerry is trying to insult Dowitch's religion and all he can think of is Mickey Mouse because that's the only thing that he's told him about.
Yeah. the only cultural reference that survived the centuries.
Yeah. Well, he's got a watch. Doesn't he have like a Disney watch?
Oh, he might.
Oh, no, he mentions Mickey Mouse. He's like, I don't know, Mickey Mouse might be a prophet. Anyway, it's fine. The guy that Garibaldi...
Anyway, listen to our Enemy Mine episode.
That was a good episode. But the guy's like, the maker of all things will not permit this. He will allow nothing to stand between me and this blade. And Garibaldi's like, okay, tell you what. I'm going to put a magnet on this shit. I'm going to stick it to the outside of the station. I'm going to point you to the nearest airlock. And if you can get it without a suit, you can keep this blade. If God provides this blade for you, you can keep it. How about that?
How about that? I will be watching.
Yeah. And the guy goes, you test my faith? And Garibaldi's like, yeah, you test my patience. So why don't you go ahead and fuck off before I flunk out? And he goes, oh, okay. And then he leaves. This is an interesting place to start. So canonically, maybe Garibaldi's an atheist. I'm just going to go with that because he's like, you know what? How about you wait and see if God does it for you?
Or he is a really devout person, but he doesn't push it on anybody, and he disbelieves anybody else's religion.
I think Garibaldi believes what is directly in front of him and what he has evidence of, and literally nothing else. Yeah. I think that's a very good way to assess his character. And then he turns to his friend and he's like, 5 more days of this, of Earth Alliance's brilliant idea of having cultures come together on Babylon 5 to present their dominant beliefs to advance the cause of peace and understanding. This is the most I'm going to become a right-wing talk show host that Garibaldi ever sounds. Because he's like, oh yeah, we got to learn about other people's cultures or whatever. Maybe that would have prevented, I don't know, the entire Earth Minbari War, but we're not there yet.
Maybe.
So, yeah, I feel like this is actually probably a good idea to like give everybody a chance to present something that you would maybe not normally talk about, or that,
right? Especially, it fosters an environment that invites questions.
Yeah,
it invites curiosity, and curiosity is anathema to hate.
Correct. And really, the entire purpose of Garibaldi being here and having this conversation about this knife is so that he can be in the customs area when this mysterious woman enters the station.
Ooh.
And he does this like, I'm not looking at her. Is she looking at me? I'm not looking at her. Is she still back there? And then he goes, never fails. And the guy goes, what? And he's like, you know what? I'll be right back. I got to go.
You take over. I have some things to take care of.
Yeah. And then we cut to Jakar. I love Jakar so much. And
I think this episode really like leans into Jakar's character.
it's our first. Jakar is not just the mustache twirling revenge for my people character.
Right.
He's a fully fleshed out singing to himself. Like,
Yes.
he's singing to himself while making dinner. And put a pin in this song because it's going to pop up a couple of times. Pretty much.
Melody.
And he,
Yeah.
no, and he sings it. He'll sing it a
Yeah.
couple of times. It's his go-to
Okay.
hum
so
to himself song, earworm song.
anytime we have a very different culture / language from the one the media is being communicated in,
Yeah.
whether that's a different culture on Earth or an alien species, and then we get a little snippet with just that character alone. In my head, I imagine anytime like the ambassadors are alone in their rooms and they're talking to other people of their
Yeah.
species, or they're just like talking to themselves out loud, they're probably speaking their own language.
Yeah.
And what we're seeing is the translation of that into English.
Right.
Okay. But Jakar is a little different. Jakar is really, really interested in humans.
Yeah.
He likes human women,
He does.
which we find out in this episode. And we get some other hints, references later of Jakar is almost like hyperfixated on humanity.
It's like his not hyperfixated.
His special interest.
Yeah, yeah. It's his unique special
And
interest.
so, and
We're
him and
the
Londo-
new kids on the scene.
him and Londo are always trading Earth aphorisms, as the humans say.
Yeah.
And so I'm not sure whether which side I lean on. Is this just the like English language equivalent song of that, I guess, that Jakar would be singing in the Narn language?
Well, no, later
Is he actually
I think he's actually singing this song.
practicing singing in like he hit random on
Because he's
Earth
going to sing it.
culture
He's going to sing
education.
it to Londo later. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So this is his special interest, humanity.
Listen, humanity
so
is the new kid on the scene.
He really likes the idioms and some of their songs.
Right. We have not been on the universal scene for very long at all. The Earth Minbari War was 10 years ago, and that was about when we really started meeting all these different races. So, of course, it's plausible that we're interesting because we're new.
Yeah.
So he could very well have been like, well, what does their music sound like? And this one got stuck in his head. It makes sense to me. So to me, he's singing this song. And it's better if he's singing this song because it makes sense with all of the little things that he's doing. Because he's singing to a pig head that he's cooking. Maybe a pig head, maybe a Narn equivalent of a pig head. I don't know. That he's like roasting in this pot. And I do enjoy how every single ambassador's quarters are sort of customized. Like Londo has a couple of brocade pillows. So clearly that's how
he
you
has
know
lots
that's his.
of drapery
Ornamentation.
things. Ornamentation, yeah.
And the Minbari Delenn has a lot of multicolored crystals. We haven't really seen hers, but hers is everything with the Minbari is very multicolored crystals. But Jakar's is the most
Goth.
not just vibes, but like he brought his own table. He brought his own chair. He brought his own lighting. He brought his own food storage. He brought his own food cook method. He brought his own bed. Like everything feels very Narn. And it's even got special lighting where it's like dark and then slightly red.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to mention he's got new contacts. He gets new contacts within the first couple of episodes. And they're like a full sclera red.
Yeah.
And Kodath did not have them. She just had regular eyes. But Natoth has them.
Right.
Anyway, I always think...
Natoths just cover her iris.
Well, they're larger than her. They're not sclera. Like, they don't cover the whole thing, but they're larger than just her iris. Anyway, they didn't give Kodath any because they're like, I'm sorry, you're here for one episode. We do not have the budget.
I'm wondering if the red color scheme in Jakar's room is because the Narn home planet is
has a
much
red
more
sun.
red, and so their eyes are, optimized, tuned, whatever, to a slightly different spectrum of visible light.
I think that's what the implication is.
So if that's the case, then when Jakar is out, like in the human, white light
It
hallways,
probably feels really bright.
is it uncomfortable?
Maybe that's why he's so grumpy all the time.
Maybe.
Anyway, he's singing to this pig head. And at one point he's singing and he goes bloop and twerks the ears. And then he picks up these crayfish, or if you're from where we're from, these crawdaddies. They call crawdaddies, but crayfish. And he sings to them. He's like, so many fishes, but no one for me. And he like
bumps them
against each other. And then he sets them down in this plate, takes everything over the table, preparing to eat, and
open
the door chime.
He has it in his face with his mouth open, and doorbell
Doorbell rings, and he's like,
damn it.
And he opens the door, and the guy's like, are you Ambassador Jakar? And he goes, this is Ambassador Jakar's room. This is Ambassador Jakar's table. This is Ambassador Jakar's dinner. What part of this progression escapes you?
Are you Ambassador Jakar?
This is Ambassador Jakar's quarters. This is Ambassador Jakar's table. This is Ambassador Jakar's dinner. Which part of this progression escapes you?
My apologies.
Fucking yes, I'm Ambassador Jakar. And the guy goes, oh, okay, hi. I'm diplomatic courier to Pari, and I just got here with some mail for you. Which furthers our suspicion that they do not wirelessly transmit information. Because he literally is delivering a data crystal with messages.
Well, it's a confidential message.
Yeah. And he goes, you got to watch it now. And Jakar's like, I do not, in fact, have to watch it now. And he's like, no, I was given orders that said it's really important and you got to watch it right now. And he's
I'm
like,
sure you were told it was very important.
He's like, yeah, every message that I get, people tell me
I'm a very important
Can
person.
you just, it's like, can you get the fuck out, please? Thank you. And so the guy leaves and he goes back to the table and one of the little crayfish has wandered off and he has to pick it up and put it on the table. And he goes, you stayed there, which feels like, it feels like he improv'd that. And I love that. He was like, oh, look at that guy wandered off. And so he's like, no, you stay right there. And then he's like, fuck it. I'll watch it. So he gets up and his little screen is mounted in the wall. And he puts his little data crystal next to the screen. And Matt pointed out that the screen actually has the brand logo in the upper left-hand corner.
Yeah, it says TFT in the top left corner. Yeah. And TFT was, from my memory, it's what they used in the first laptop screens.
Okay.
It was like the precursor to LCDs, the liquid crystal displays that were full color. And so it's like previously, when we've had actual screens in the walls, it was a flat CRT screen that was built into the wall, so you couldn't see the bulk of it behind. But it looks like maybe they got some more money.
Well, I think they have one or two of these, and they move them around.
But they didn't. Yeah. They didn't cover up the TFT.
Not at all.
Yes,
they did put like a little label maker label at the bottom. like the plastic
Babcom.
Like the plastic labels that you would type in and it had a little metal, it would push through the plastic
and discolor the
plastic. That's what's at the bottom. And it says, I forget what it says. It doesn't say anything it doesn't say Babcom. It says like, I can't remember, but it's in English. And then there's the little, anyway, this message is from Durog. And he's like, sup, Jakar, it's Durog. Good news. I'm dying. And Jakar goes, fucking finally. And then he goes back to pick up his drink as the guy goes, in fact, by the time you get this message, I'll be dead. And he goes, aha, cheers. And then he drinks his drink. And he goes, but then very shortly, so will you. Bum, bum, bum.
Dramatic turn to the
So
screen.
if you're keeping track, this is one of those Babylon 5 episodes where we have an A plot, a B plot, and a C plot. An A plot is the religious ceremonies that are happening, the week of religious exploration that is being hosted on Babylon 5. B is that woman that walked in. Mm-hmm. And C is Jakar's assassination attempt. That's about his third assassination attempt that he's about to go through. And then we cut to the intro. And when we come back, it is Jakar watching the rest of his message. And Durog is like, are you shocked? You ruined my name, you asshole. And then I built my future so that I could liquidate my assets upon my death and then hire someone to kill your ass. That was paraphrased, but roughly that's what he said. And he's like, have fun, jerk. You have 48 hours. Live in fear, bitch. That's the end of the entire message. And Jakar's like,
mind games.
And Jakar's just standing there with his mouth open like, oh no. Oh no. Who does that? Who literally amasses wealth during their entire life so that they can hire someone to be killed after they die? He's like, I lived well because I didn't want to bankrupt myself killing you because you're not worth that. But you are worth killing after I'm dead.
Right.
And just at that moment, his brand new aide, Natath, arrives. Natath is my favorite of all of his aides.
Yes.
I love Natath. And then we go to Sinclair getting ready for the Centauri ceremony, which is to be hosted by Londo. And he's like, I've heard it helps to be on time because they're usually a week long of eating, purging, which is the most Londo religion I've ever heard in my entire life.
It's very Roman.
What's the Centauri religion? Oh, getting drunk and eating for an entire week. Oh, okay, cool. I like that religion. This is when Garibaldi comes in and they have this whole conversation. But Garibaldi is really there to tell him that Catherine is on board. And for those keeping track, Catherine is the lady that just walked in, but the woman that he was with in the gathering is Caroline. This is not a recast. This is an entirely separate flame who is roaming about the universe waiting to come for a hookup date at Babylon 5.
A different woman.
And Sinclair's whole vibe is, well, shit. And then he goes, was she with anybody? And Garibaldi's like, I mean, not that I could see. And I love this plot line for a couple of reasons, which we'll cover when they finally get together. But you know how fucking unprofessional this is? He is distracted by the idea that this woman is on board for the rest of the episode.
Yeah.
Because he then goes to the Centauri religious ceremony, which, by the way, is set in either the casino set or the strip club set. They're kind of the same thing. And they're just drinking. And there's people playing music. And there's a guy in this mask. And it looks like he probably can't see because he's just spinning in place. Mm-hmm. In the background, like, oh
bopping.
Yeah, I'm having the best time of my life. And there's a little Centauri band jamming in the background. This is the best. Like I love, but it's my favorite one. Like the Minbari one is zero chill. But the Centauri one
I feel like if Sinclair said, Londo, Veer, I'm sorry, I have to leave. It's about a woman. Londo would be like, well, of course. That's the highest priority. Go.
Of all things in the universe, are females not the finest? Yeah, fuck off, man. Go. Instead, he just dips. But it's fine. Because first, Londo gets a chance to fuck with Delenn a little bit. He's like, no, eat, drink. Which we find out, it's not really a spoiler, but we find out later that alcohol makes Minbari pathologically violent. They don't drink alcohol because it sends them into a murderous rage. So she's just there literally picking at a lettuce leaf.
Yeah.
Like nothing here is safe. I will kill everyone in this room if I eat anything. And
the air's giving me vibes. The fumes.
And so they're like, what is it exactly that we're celebrating here? Like how I would not put it past Londo to just throw a party.
I feel like, yes. Partying is our dominant religion.
And they're like, is it? And he's like, Yes. What do you know? You're not Centauri. Of course, partying is our dominant religion. Strippers come in. He's like, yes, our priestesses. The best way that you can honor them is with tips. Yes. Like, that's exactly what I think Londo would do, which I think is probably why they're like, okay, so what exactly is happening here? And he's like, oh, okay. Veer actually explains. He says, this is from a time in our culture when we were fighting with another race called the Zan. And at the end of the year, we would count how many of our people were still alive, and then we would celebrate. If we had, more than last year, or not zero. If we had not zero people, we would celebrate because, hey, we made it through an entire another year. And Garibaldi's like, the Zan? Well, what happened to him? And he's like, oh, we straight up murdered them all. Good riddance, too.
It bothers me a little how lightly they treat genocide.
It was a long time ago. I know. Yeah. It's like there were two groups of us. It's literally like, oh, we murdered all the Neanderthals. That's why they're not here anymore. So it's fine. Because then Londo goes, do you know what the last Zan said right before he died? And then he goes, ah! And then he makes this face like, ah! Like that was so fucking funny. It's a moment. It's, you know what? It may be even like apocryphal. Like there may not have been another. It may have been so far in the past that it's not a thing that it doesn't feel real to them, probably.
Yeah, it's mythological.
Yeah, it's probably. So you know what? We're just gonna put that right over there, and it kind of explains the Centauri if you think about it. The like, hey, everyone else exists for us to either kill or exploit because we literally that's the arms race that drove us to become the religion and
technological advancement.
Yeah, that's the word I was going for. That's what made our society what it is. So it kind of makes sense that their dominant personality trait is conquest.
Yeah.
Conquest and celebration. So, okay, it's fine. And after he makes his dumb joke about what did the last Zan say, Garibaldi looks over at Sinclair and goes, can I kill him now? And Sinclair goes, no, but I'll tell you. Like, I'll let you know as soon as it comes up. You're the man I'm going to call to do that. And then we cut over to Londo, who is sitting next to Ivanova. And Ivanova looks so relaxed and so happy. And she's drinking with Londo, which feels appropriate.
Yeah, this is the happiest we ever see Ivanova.
Yeah, and
for
Londo,
a while.
Londo actually stands up and chucks a roll at Sinclair's head and goes, lighten the fuck up! He goes, come on, Commander, loosen up! This is like, you are not celebrating my religion if you're not getting drunk. That's what I'm saying.
Like, if you don't pick up the pace here, I'm going to have to do another formal round of chug, 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 chug.
And if you don't do it, you're disrespecting me. So,
yes.
yeah, I'm just going to put that out there. And Ivanova's like, so what are all these statues? Like, what's all this shit on the table? And he goes, oh, these are our gods. Our
household gods.
When every day is a struggle, you need all the gods you can get. Gods by the bushel. Gods by the pound.
Gods by the bushel. Gods by the pound. Gods for all occasions. Have I ever told you that you are very cute for a Mimbare? Oh, and you are cute too, in an annoying sort of way. Everybody's cute. Everybody's cute. Even me. But in purple, I am stunning.
He has become one with his inner self.
He's passed out.
That too.
My favorite line. Meanwhile, Garibaldi and Sinclair are super preoccupied with Catherine. Like, he's here as the formal representative of Earth. And he's like, so tell me about Catherine. How did she look? And Garibaldi's like, I mean, fine. She looked really good. Do you want to go see her? And he's like, no.
Right, no. Overtly, he's like, I am not interested at all.
Yeah, nope, it's fine.
I'm not going to do anything
about it. He goes,
it.
but if I were going to, do you know where she is? And then Garibaldi straight up gives him her exact room number.
I don't think it's a room number. I think, so the colors are the ring sections of the station.
Yeah.
And I think the numbers are either the sections of that ring or like the level of that ring.
Yeah.
And so when he says like blue 5, it's like there's probably a good like Walmart sized area of the station, which is blue 5.
That was the most American system of measurement you've ever used in your entire life.
like a warehouse store
Yeah.
sized
Big box
section
store.
of the station that is blue 5. And so he knows roughly where she is. Maybe that's the business sector. I think he uses the term business sector. So like this is where you go when you
She's
need to
there
have
doing negotiations.
professional business
Yeah.
meetings.
Which means he knows where she is at this exact moment, that she's there having a negotiation.
Right.
Yeah. Well, the point is, my point stands, which is that Garibaldi is a narc. And if anybody ever needs to know where anybody is,
Yes.
they just ask Garibaldi.
And if you want Garibaldi to not be a narc for you, on you, you stay in his good graces.
Right. The Garibaldi character is one of the most complex and, in terms of cop propaganda, has aged weirdly.
Yeah.
And I just feel like I want to point it out when it pops up, which is like, this is supposed to be like a bro moment because Sinclair's his buddy.
Right. So he's being a wingman.
So he's being a
But
wingman,
he's
but
using
also,
his official access, his official
yeah,
privileges to facilitate being a wingman.
yeah, to a person who is his commanding officer.
Right. It's kind of a conflict of interest.
It's just sort of I just want to put it, I'm just going to put it on the plate. I'm
Yeah.
going to set it on the table. You can do what you want with that. I just want to acknowledge it. And the most important part here is at this point, Londo actually climbs on the table and he's like, this guy is the god of food. And this
Benson.
is the goddess of passion. And he picks the statue up and kisses it on the ass. He's like, mwah. And this statue has tentacles. And we've seen several Centauri statues at this point that have these tentacles that come off the side. And I just want you to put a pin in that because we're going to revisit it. And when you do,
It gives it a whole nother meaning.
It gives it a whole nother layer of meaning. So just kind of just boop, put that right there. And then he goes in front of Delenn and he's like, you're cute for a Minbari. And then he looks over at Garibaldi and he's like, you're cute in an annoying sort of way. And he goes, everybody's cute. I'm cute. But in purple, I'm stunning. And then he passes out. He sings a little bit. He's like, everybody's cute. Everybody's cute. And then he passes out. And Veer stands up and he goes, he has become one with his inner self. And Garibaldi's like, he passed the fuck out. And Veer goes, yeah, that too. And then he looks over at the commander to give him some more of, snackies, whatever he has in his hand. And the commander has fucked off to go find the woman. Interesting. He's ditched.
Yeah,
he even turns off.
Peter Jurasik didn't need to go that hard.
But he did.
But he did.
And he did that for us. And I thank you for your service, sir. Yeah. The commander even turns off his comlink. He takes it off his hand and sticks it in his pocket.
Very unprofessional.
It's fine. It's fine. We're not going to keep harping on how unprofessional this whole thing is because I love their interactions. Every single one of their interactions are just melodrama 1950s wooden dialogue delivery masterpieces.
Yeah.
Because the first thing he does is go to see Catherine, and she's wrapping up this business deal. And then
he's just standing there looking at her.
And then they get this really awkward conversation. And I know that this actress has been in other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
She has been in other stuff. She was in Double Dragon. And a couple episodes of Star Trek.
Okay.
And like 1 or 2 episodes of a ton of stuff.
Yeah.
I just love that it looks like she's reading either off a napkin or the back of her hand the entire, that's not a criticism. It's
supposed to feel awkward.
I don't know that it's supposed to, I think it's supposed to feel romantic, but the sheer drama and now kiss of this is so, it makes my 90s TV loving heart so happy.
Mm-hmm.
because every single line that they say to each other is delivered in complete monotone with swelling music in the background, with this soft filter on the camera. And sometimes it's even slowly It's so soap opera. I can't even. I love it so much. Because he's like, oh, hi, Carolyn. And she's like, oh, no.
Catherine.
Oh, my God. If he did that, it'd be over from the very beginning. He's like, hey, you know what I got back at my place? Frictionless sheets. Just don't ask me where I got them. Carolyn left them to be laundered and then just never came back. He's been using them this entire time. She goes, how's Carolyn? And he's like, yeah, good. No, I haven't seen her.
Last I talked to her.
Literally The Gathering was the last I talked to her.
Which is over a year ago.
Yeah. And meanwhile, his pants are like, Commander. And she goes, I don't mean to alarm you, but your pants are talking to you because, hey, he's actually still on duty. And he's like, no, don't look at my pants. Hey, do you want to go to dinner? And she's like, just dinner? And he's like, yeah, we could just go to dinner. It's.
I think he has a good pitch here.
Yeah.
He's like, this is my station. I'm proud of her.
Well, she goes,
I want to show you around.
She goes, this is how we get into trouble every couple of years. And he's like, I mean, yeah, granted, but also this is my station. You're right. I'm really proud of her and I want to show her to you because like we have a connection and I want to show you what I'm up to right now. This doesn't mean that we're going to end up having sex. And she's like, I mean, okay, it does, but okay.
And I would say this is a decent reference for how you build a connection with somebody is I want to show you the things that are important to me.
Yeah. And we can catch up and you can tell me what you've been doing too. And we'll just kind of see what happens. And she goes, well, I'd give you my birth number, but I guess you know how to find me. She's aware of his ways.
She knows he has connections.
Yeah. I mean, he's the commander of the station, so she can assume.
Yeah.
He has a way of finding her birth number. And then we come back to Jakar and Natoth because while this very melodramatic reconnection of these two characters is happening, Jakar's fighting for his fucking life because he has 48 hours to live. And he's like, Natoth is doing work and he's just sitting at the table staring at her. And finally he swats the little like computer out of her hand and he's like, I'm thinking about the unfortunate accident with the airlock that cost me that cost me my last aid. And she goes, yes, no, that was very sudden. Weirdest thing. And he's like, so Natoth, who sponsored you? How did you get here? And she's like, oh, she throws out a name. And he's like, oh, the one who was sponsored by Durag. And she's like, I mean, I guess, I don't know. He's like, have you ever met Durag? And she's like, I don't think so. And he's like, you seem very sure about someone you've never met. And so he tells her, you know, I think someone's trying to kill me. And she goes, Ambassador, if I was trying to kill you, you would already be dead. That's why I like Natoth. She's like, no, I'm really good at what I do. I'd already have fucking murdered you. And he goes, what if you were told to frighten me first? What if you were told to make me live in fear? And she's like, okay, let's break this down. If a Narn was going to kill you, they would probably go to the Assassin's Guild because they would want the best. And it is a tradition of the Thanta Makor to leave a black death blossom for the victim so that they know to get their affairs in order. So have you received a black flower? And Jakar's like, no. And she's like, okay, then.
Don't worry about it.
You probably aren't going to be killed. So like, chill out. He could very easily have just sent you that message to fuck with you, Jakar.
Right.
Because this is a thing that has happened to you before. Fucking with Jakar has happened at least twice, and we've had like 6 episodes. So clearly, 1/3 of the time.
2 of those episodes didn't even have Jakar in them.
So, like, chill out. It's fine. So then we go to Jakar's sleeping scene. They had to make a whole chest
There's
prosthetic
a lot of
for
skin.
this.
A lot of Jakar skin.
This is cool. I love Jakar's makeup, and I love Jakar's, like, we even included, he doesn't just have like a man chest with dots painted on it. He has like a different structural looking like.
Oh yeah, it's an entire prosthetic like torso.
And this music box sounding lullaby is playing, and it's the song
same melody.
That
I'm thinking of calling her.
Yeah, and so he rolls over, and what's on his pillow but a death blossom?
But it must smell.
Yeah, because he smells it.
That's what wakes him up.
Yeah. Oh, in my notes, I put that Natoth is the Narn version of a goth, and you can't convince me otherwise because she has a lot of knowledge about the Assassin's Guild. For someone who is an unpaid political intern, she's like, okay, so I'm like hyper obsessed with the Thantamakur because I think they're really cool. Because later she knows that they have a whole backup system.
On the topic of the unpaid political intern,
Yeah.
my understanding is that in Narn society, being an ambassador, being involved in intercultural, interspecies
Yeah.
politics
Mhm.
is really, really high status.
Yeah. And highly competitive considering Natath probably murdered Conan.
So in my mind, Natath is extremely competent.
Yeah.
And,
she is.
And
Yeah.
and so she's not just some unpaid political intern just doing grunt work. She's there because of her skill set
Yeah.
and because of the skill set that she can provide to Jakar.
Oh, absolutely.
So
yeah.
it's not just, oh, here's somebody to get coffee for you. It's here's somebody who has a deep working knowledge of Narn society, Narn politics, as well as extra Narn politics.
Right, but here I will make the same point that I made during our Throne of Glass episodes that I did with Kate and Hannah on Feast, Sheath, and Shatter, which is if you are in Assassin's Guild, the less that people know about you, the better.
Right.
So being able to contact you is literally the only thing that you need to make available. So the fact that she is as aware of everything about...
I think she's a failed assassin.
That's what... Okay. I mean, that's
Or
a good
she-
headcanon.
Yeah, like
It just
she got
feels
out
like
early
her-
enough that they didn't hunt her down for leaving.
It just feels like I know a lot more about burial
Or
practices.
somebody tried to assassinate her, but she captured her assassin and tortured them for information.
That's canon. That's my favorite thing. No, because like I personally, know a lot more about burial practices than like, I don't know, your average person because for some weird reason, I find it interesting. So it feels like this is Natath for some weird reason. It felt she may be very ambitious and expecting to get very high up. And so she probably felt like knowing as much about the Assassin's Guild as possible would be beneficial.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just love that she has this weird, deep working knowledge of the Thantamakur, the Assassin's Guild. I just want to point that out. Because after he finds the Death Blossom, we cut to him throwing it down on the table in front of Natath and being like, how do you think that got into my bed? Huh? You don't know how that got in my bed? She goes, Ambassador,
Unruffled.
it is not my place to question how anything gets into your bed. Your reputed fascination with Earth women, for example.
And you have no idea how that got into my bed?
Ambassador, it is not my place to speculate on how anything gets into your bed. Your reputed fascination with Earth women, for instance.
And she's like, listen, if this is such a big fucking deal, why don't you just ask the home world for help or the commander? We could contact the commander of the station. Hey, Londo did it not too long ago. And he said, hey, don't tell anybody. And the commander didn't. So clearly he's the kind of guy you can go to when you don't want to make it official. And he goes, because I can stand on my own 2 feet, because I survived our War of Independence. I survived multiple years on the council and 2 prior assassination attempts. Being a Narn in a position of power must be brutal because they're all like, I have survived this long. Plus, this would lead to some unfortunate revelations about why Durag wants me dead. Kind of like how Londo had to do what he had to do because he didn't want anybody to know the kind of stuff that he got up to. Almost as if they're more alike than they care to think of. And personally, I don't care if that shit gets out, but it could hurt our standing in the negotiations. So let's handle this quietly. And this whole time he's gesturing with this knife.
Yeah.
And finally, Natath is like, if you think I'm the assassin, why are you telling me all of this? And he goes, the Earthers have a phrase, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. I think they stole it from us. Either way, I look forward to strengthening our relationship. And then he stabs this, I think it's a pineapple. He stabs the pineapple with his knife and he goes, okay, so the first step is we need to go find the courier who gave me the message. And she's like, I mean, he probably dipped. And he's like, nope, no ships have left for Narn since yesterday afternoon. So he's definitely still here, and I want you to go find him. I'm going to go get myself a bodyguard. And she's like, I thought you weren't going to tell Homeworld. And he's like, I'm not going to. And then he like, he like sneaks out into the hallway. Meanwhile, Delenn has gone to meet her diplomatic attaché, Lanier, who was played by Bill Mumy. And he comes out and he's like, oh, hello, Satai Delenn. Satai Delenn.
Yes, Satai Delenn
Yes,
of the Great
Satai
Council.
Delenn. Oh, I'm so honored to be serving one of the Great Council. And she's like, Lanier, shh, 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 shh.
Keep it on the down
Keep it
low.
on the down low. But he won't even look at her. And she's like, you can look up. And he's like, oh, no, it's forbidden. I can't look up. And she's like, I cannot have an aide who will not look up. You will forever be running into things. So he very reluctantly looks up. And then he's like, I'm a little overwhelmed because I was just a simple novitiate and now I'm serving one of the Great Council. And she's like, yeah, you can go ahead and never say any of that ever again. You just call me Delenn. Do you understand? And he's like, yes, Satai Delenn.
Yes, sir.
Delenn. And she goes,
Okay.
oh, good. I'm glad you understand. He goes, oh, no, I don't understand shit. But
Understanding is not required.
Only obedience. She's like, great. You can help me with a demonstration of Minbari religion. And he's like, I have literally trained my whole life for this. Like the one thing I feel ready to do. And then we go back to Jakar, who, of course, has gone to see
Nagrath. Our favorite underworld operative.
Honestly, if Garibaldi just took out Nagrath, he'd do away with all of the crime on the entire station. All he has to do is manufacture a malfunction in the atmospheric controls for Nagrath's room. Because Nagrath has a different atmosphere from other people.
Yeah.
And we get to see...
We've already covered why Jakar can be in here.
Yeah, I was going to say, we get to see...
without a breather
Jakar
mask.
using his gills again, which honestly is probably a limitation with his makeup. That he probably could not wear the face thing over top of the face thing that he's already wearing.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're just like, what if he can just breathe it? And they're like, cool. Yeah, no, that's way easier. Yeah. Can you imagine being someone who has that many prosthetics on your face and then having to put like goggles over your face?
Right.
I also would be like, I'm going to die of claustrophobia. I must take this off. And so he goes to see Nagrath and he's like, I need a bodyguard. And he's like, you're a Narn. What the fuck do you need a bodyguard for?
The Narn are like the premier bodyguard service.
He's like, I mean, you don't want a Narn bodyguard? And he's like, no, it can't be any Narn for reasons of my own. And he's like, okay, how about this guy? And it's the bouncer from the previous episode, who the not rhino guy with the horn nose. And he's like, oh, yes, even though Andreas Katsoulis is actually taller and beefier than this guy. But he's like, oh, yeah, no, that guy will do. It's fine. It doesn't matter.
It's just to have mostly an extra set of eyes and expendable muscle.
Yeah, someone to die instead of him, basically. And so what happens after that is really more important because we go back to Sinclair and Catherine. And they're going to Fresh Air, the restaurant.
The
on
fancy
Babylon.
restaurant.
And she's like, wow, I don't think I've ever seen you out of uniform before. I thought you were never off duty. And he goes, yeah, maybe you don't know me as well as you think because I do go off duty. And she's like, you're right. And whose fault is that? It's a great start. It's a great start. I love it. And then we get more overly dramatic 50s style sexual tension because she delivers this long monologue, totally deadpan.
Oh, yeah. I love this monologue.
Yeah. She's like, this is how we get into trouble every 3 to 4 years. We meet. You ask me about the academy. I ask about your aunt. Or you ask about my aunt. I ask about your brother. And then we fuck. And then you leave. And he's like, no, you leave. And she's like, I never left. And he's like, no, you left last time. And she's like, did I? Oh, yeah. No, I did. I did leave last time. You're right. And she goes, I've been thinking about you lately. I think about you in the summer. And he goes, I think about you in the fall. And then she goes, we never could agree on anything. It's so good. It's so good. I love it so much. It's so...
And they're really selling that these two people are really, really into each other.
Yeah.
but
It's
they've
just
been hurt by each other so
Yeah.
many times.
And it's just never the right
that
time.
they're keeping this wall up to protect themselves, but they still can't help but
Yeah, because
but
sometimes when
banter.
they meet each other, they're with other people.
Mhm.
Sometimes they're not. But it's never quite the right moment for them to smash the way they want to.
and stay together.
And yet at this moment, it might be. And
Yep.
it's terrifying because what happens if we finally get what we want?
Right.
And my favorite part about all of this is that we somehow convey all of that. Well, it feels like she's reading off of a napkin. Like it
Yeah.
just was she hired for her eyebrows? Because these eyebrows look, you know what it looks like? It looks like they removed her actual eyebrows, which was a thing in the 90s and the early 2000s. So it's fine. And then they took a glass and stuck it above her eye and just traced the top curve of the glass because they're like perfectly semicircle. It's fine. It's just a minor. Like, well, that was interesting. Did she do that herself? And he goes, yeah, it was always 3 parts passion, 2 parts teeth with us, wasn't it? You know what? Get you a man. Get you a man who's like, it was always 3 parts passion, 2 parts teeth. Was that 5 parts? How many parts are there? Is there additional parts? Was it 5 parts
Well,
sexual chemistry?
It's like 1 part water to 2 parts flour
Oh,
in
okay.
a recipe.
Yeah.
It's not like,
But he doesn't say 1 and 2. He says 2 and 3.
yeah, that's fine.
Okay. I just want to.
2 to 3 is a legitimate
What
ratio.
an odd way to put it is.
Yes, it is. It is an odd way to put it, but
it fits.
because it's odd, it catches your attention.
And then there's this brief pause as this romantic music swells in the background. And then he goes, how's your aunt? And she goes, how's your brother? It's so good. And he goes, wait, we forgot to ask about the academy.
Yeah.
Oh, and then we cut to the Minbari religious ritual because after all of that, they like, she goes, we're going to get into trouble, aren't I? And he's like, yeah, oh no, it's going to be good. Because she even says, I keep all the letters you wrote to me, the passion.
And I reread them.
And I reread them to remind me why we can't be together. And he's like, I mean,
that's totally the reason you reread them.
It's a very good, we are 2 people who have been orbiting around each other for a really long time.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because we're meant to be together, but we also are explosive when we're together. So
Yeah.
it's the way they convey that in this it's so wooden and I love it so much. Because then we cut to the Minbari religious ritual, which is not the Eucharist. It's not because they're like, this is my red fruit broken for you. Eat this in remembrance of me. Like it's a very, it's a rebirth ritual.
Yeah.
And it's like renewal disguised as defeat, new life couched in death. We must put aside old things. And then she hands out this red fruit to everybody. And then we have Delenn, center frame, delivering her no-chill Minbari. There's nothing fun about this ceremony. This is all serious, all religious. And in the
Eyes
background...
locked.
And in the
yeah.
in the background, you see Jakar's hand, and he's not even in focus.
Ivanova has set down her cherry tomato.
Yeah.
When he grabbed his, he's looking at it very suspiciously.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we get out of focus in the background. We can see Ivanova's cherry tomato on the counter. And then we see Jakar's hand come into frame, drop one, and then pick up Ivanova's. Works so well on a rewatch.
because Delenn has locked eyes with him, or is it Lanier? When Lanier's handing it out, what she's saying is, "This is your death."
Yeah, specifically when Jakar gets his.
Right. So he's like, "Oh, okay."
Sus.
And so Londo's like, "Boop," and he just eats it. He's like, whatever. And then he looks over at Veer. He looks over at Veer like, yeah, it's fine. You can eat it. And so Veer eats it. And then Garibaldi goes, and just sets it down. Interesting. And then Delenn like locks eyes with Sinclair and is like, this is your death. Taste of it. Taste of it. He's like, okay, fine. And so he eats it. Wouldn't it be insulting for the rest of them to not eat it? I feel like
maybe.
I don't know. But he eats it, and then Delenn eats hers very dramatically. Like her eyes roll back in her head like, oh my God, this is the best fruit I've ever. It's weird. What she says to him actually is, taste of it and be not afraid, for I am with you until the end of time. I just want to, that's a good spot for a pin right there. And then she does her, yes, fruit eating. And then she goes, so it begins.
Just like Theoden.
And then we come back just like Theoden. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it begins.
So it begins. And then we come back to Jakar in his quarters because he's like, where the fuck was the bodyguard? They were staring me in the eye and telling me this fruit was my death. I was so stressed. And Natath is like, Ambassador, he's in the other room. So Ambassador Jakar goes into the other room and he's like, where the fuck were you? Because the bodyguard is just sitting there. And so he slaps him on the back and he falls over
because he's dead.
And there's another death blossom. And then we get a really great moment where Jakar is actually called station security because there's a dead body in his room. He could stick it out the airlock, but that has implications. So he's like, it's fine. Garibaldi can come and investigate this murder. I'm literally allowing him on here because this is technically foreign soil. And Garibaldi's like, so you don't know this guy? And he's like, no, he was just in my room when I came back here. And he's like, oh, so you don't know anything about him and how you got in there? And he's like, I was with you at the ceremony. And Garibaldi's like, yeah, and I remember you being real weird the whole time we were there. Don't think I didn't notice you switching that fruit.
Real squirrely.
And then he's like, what's that? And he walks over to Jakar's bed and pulls a pair of hot
lacy
pink,
panties,
hot pink thong out of Jakar's bed. And he's like, huh. And so Jakar grabs it from him and then swats him with it. He's like, I am being nice letting you come here. This is technically foreign soil, so I don't have to do jack shit. And it would be really nice if you didn't engage in your usual harassment, Garibaldi. And Garibaldi's like, you know what? You're right. I'm sorry. And let me say, from the bottom of my heart, hot pink is definitely your color.
Yours?
Get out!
Don't push, Ambassador. Unless you've heard otherwise, I'm still head of security.
And under the terms of our treaty, diplomatic quarters are considered foreign soil. Since I have full diplomatic immunity, I don't have to answer any of your questions. I brought you here as a courtesy. If I were you, I'd spend a little more time finding out who killed that individual and a little less time engaging in your usual harassment.
You're right, Ambassador. My apologies. Let me know when you're finished. I want a full report.
Yes, sir.
And just let me say, Ambassador, from the bottom of my heart, hot pink is definitely your color.
Meanwhile, Natath finds Tupari in the waiting room, like waiting to leave. He's literally walking to get on a ship, and she's like, hey, come back. And he's like, thank God, I've been waiting here forever.
We find out.
Yeah. And then we go back to Catherine, who she's talking to these surveyors. And the whole purpose of this is that she surveys planets and she has a partial stake in what they find.
Right.
And so they found a bunch of Quantium 40, which is what they use to make jump gates.
Okay.
And she earned a boatload of money. In fact, we don't know how much. They type it on a pad and then hand it to her. And she's like, what? And they're like, anyway, have a great day. We got to go.
And then she realizes, I don't have anybody to celebrate with.
I know, that's kind of a sad. It's fine. She just cheers the empty space and she's like, congratulations to me.
Except one person.
Yeah, and you know what? We're going to get there because that's a really fun scene too. But we go back to Jakar because meanwhile, Jakar is still trying to avoid this assassination thing. And Natath brings Tupari back and he's great, now fuck off, Natath. And he grabs Tupari and he's like, who gave you that message? And he's like, Natath's dad. And Jakar's like, oh my God, I knew it was Natath. That's the entire purpose of that entire scene. Because Tupari tells him, the danger is closer to you than you think, Ambassador. Truer words, because if you haven't figured it out yet, Tupari is the bad guy. It's not that complicated to figure it out. He's the only other Narn we've seen this entire episode. Although we do a very good job of like, is it maybe Natath? Is Natath in on it?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, when you haven't watched this episode and you're watching it for the first time, you're like, I mean, it could be. It could plausibly be. But Sinclair is listening to an audiobook in his room, and it's Tennyson. And he's just sitting in his chair with his eyes closed, listening to Tennyson. And Catherine arrives with wine and bread and flarn. She's like,
Who knows?
She goes, do you know it was 500 credits for wine and bread and flarn? I don't know what flarn is. Maybe it's like flan, but you can't make flan in space, so you make flarn. Whatever it is white and whipped cream like because she's going to suggestively lick some off her finger in just a minute. And she's like, I just got some good news and I'm tired of not having anyone to celebrate it with. And then she's like, oh my God, are you listening to Tennyson again? What's it going to
She finishes the quote that he was listening to at the time.
Well, she said, what's it going to take to drag you into the 23rd century? And he goes, we find meaning where we can. Just because I like the classics.
He was classically educated.
Yeah. And she's like, okay, so which one are you? An idle king doling unequal laws unto a savage race that hoard and sleep and feed and know not you? Or this gray spirit yearning and desire to follow knowledge like a sinking star. And then she's like, and she sucks some like white stuff off the end of her finger. Like, or could we be doing this right now? And he's like, oh, okay. Well, this is not a good idea. And she's like, don't do this. Listen to me, Sinclair. This is a booty call. You need to just let this happen. This woman just brought you wine and bread and flarn. You do not send her out the door.
There are no strings here.
And he goes, we just got over each other. And she's like, did we? Did we?
We said we did. But
He's like, she goes, who says I'm over you? Who says you're over me? Who decided we were over each other? And we get a little bit more push and pull. And finally she goes, don't send me away. Don't make me feel like a fool.
Don't send me away. Don't make me feel like a fool.
I couldn't do that. You have to know me better than that.
Aw, it's a great way to communicate your feelings, by the way.
Yeah.
And he goes, I couldn't do that. You have to know me better than that. And can we address Sinclair's voice for a minute? He has a very good voice.
he does.
He has a very nice voice. And when he does the, you have to know me better than that, as he's leaning in, that has more sexual tension than every other scene in this entire episode leading up to now.
Yeah. And I would say at this point, she gets a lot more emotive too.
Yeah. Oh,
Like they've moved past
Yes.
the keeping their walls up.
What they were trying to do
Stilted
was
speech.
not fuck each other in front of everybody.
Yeah.
They were just
It
trying.
took everything to hold back from that. And that's why they were so monotone.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
And then he gets cock blocked by maintenance. Maintenance calls him and they're like, hey, we need authorization to turn off the switches in this area and turn on the switches in the other area. And he's
Which
like, I don't know,
feels
flick
like it
the
should go
switches.
to
It's fine.
Ivanova.
Ivanova is off this entire week.
Oh, that's
She's
right.
on PTO. No one's
Yeah.
calling Ivanova.
All of her approvals are getting forwarded to
Yeah. There's nobody else.
Sinclair.
There's 3 people in charge of the station. And Catherine is like, you know what? Actually, you're right. This was a mistake. You can keep the bread and the flour. I never. And she very strategically walks past him so that he can grab her arm and like do the. It's very. What's that movie with John Wayne where the door blows open and the woman is like, he has to grab the woman as she's The Quiet Man. It's from The Quiet Man. And this whole, everything in this relationship is like exactly the same sexual tension from The Quiet Man. And this is the same culminating moment where like a door blows open and he has to grab her. And it's this very like, he grabs her arm and she very strategically turns towards him as she's going past. And that's what happens in this moment too. And then she goes, don't touch me unless you mean it. And he's like, hey, you want to try out my frictionless sheets? Just bought them off I personally bought them. Definitely nobody gave them to me or left them here accidentally. Totally unused completely. It's like the satin fuck sheets in Forever Night.
Yeah.
Why do we keep bumping into satin fuck sheets? Which is as close as we can get technologically speaking to frictionless sheets.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Jakar is still, the whole Jakar thing is such a odd insertion. I'm not honestly sure what the purpose was, except maybe comedic relief, because he's literally making a phone call to be like, I want Natath reassigned because I'm pretty sure Natath is trying to kill me. And the lady's like, oh, okay, whatever, Ambassador, but I'm sorry for our courier being delayed. I'm sorry you haven't gotten any messages lately, because He got killed? I don't know. It was
We
weird.
found our courier dead.
Yeah. So anyway, you'll be getting your messages soon. And he's like, but the courier's right here. And he turns around and Dupari's like, pew, pew, bitch. And shoots him.
Surprise, motherfucker.
Surprise, motherfucker. Supplies, motherfucker. That seemed to be. And then the booty call went well. That's what we come back to.
Yeah.
As Sinclair and Catherine are like, okay, well, got that done with. These frictionless sheets were, I don't know, not what they were cracked up to be. I'm not really sure how that was supposed to work. She's like, but maybe if we try again, because she's like, oh no, are we making the same mistakes again? And he goes, I don't know, maybe. And then he whispers in her ear, maybe not. Not saying that's not a good moment.
Yeah.
Overall, I find the actor for Sinclair somewhat hit or miss, where he feels like he should be he's in a 1950s melodrama and everybody else is in a 1990s sci-fi show.
Mhm.
That's how it generally feels. And it normally will work or not work, just depending on the situation.
Yeah.
But this is definitely a moment where his form of delivery works exceedingly well.
Yeah.
And then we come back to the funniest part of the entire episode, which is Tupari wearing reading glasses.
The struggle to put these glasses on so that they stay.
Because they don't have ears. Well, they have ears, but they're recessed.
Right. Like, why?
Why is he wearing reading glasses? Do they not have a technology of their own for this?
Right. These are like old school human reading glasses.
Maybe he couldn't buy them from the Narn because then the Thentamakor would realize he needed contacts, and it's like the military, and you couldn't.
Or, ooh. I have another idea on
Okay.
this. Okay. What if these glasses are purely performative?
Oh, they are, yeah.
Because Jakar is so interested in human culture, he got some human reading glasses.
Oh, maybe he picked them up from them.
Just to distract Jakar while he's reading it. It's like, oh yeah, let me do this very human thing
Yeah.
of one-handed putting on these glasses. They don't quite work for... Okay,
yeah.
I got them to stay.
Yeah. Jakar even calls them spectacles later.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, you took his spectacles? Because Jakar wakes up and Tupari's like, oh, hello. And he takes the glasses off.
I have an even better spin on that. Those spectacles are Jakar's. They're in his quarters. He has a human collection shelf.
Yeah.
And Tupari took them just to rub it in that I had access to your quarters and I took some of your shit.
Yeah. Oh, I mean,
Yeah.
what the
Oh yeah, these
I don't know.
that I got from your shelf. Mm-hmm.
one way or the other, I love them. I love them. And Jakar has these things that are actually large enough to simply lift off his head, but shh. And they're pain givers. And as soon as he stands up, he tries to attack Tupari and they shock him. And he's like, oh, yeah, if you got within 10 feet of me, you'll feel pain. If you get within 5 feet, you'll die. So if you fall, fall backwards. And Jakar's like, what do you want? And he goes, my orders are actually very specific. And this is when he puts on the glasses. I want to know how many takes. How many takes were required to put these glasses on? And he goes, you are to know pain. And he goes, boop, boop. And the little pain givers shock him. And again, check. And you are to know fear. And then you are to die at the required hours. So check. That's what we're going to be doing. And he goes, I confess, I'm happy to get this all over because allaying your suspicions was so tedious. Do you know how long I waited in departures? And Jakar's like, I'll pay you. Whatever he's paying you, I'll double it. And he's like, yeah, no, I can't violate a commission or the guild will kill me for violating the spirit of the whole guild thing. You can't buy off an assassin. Otherwise, you can't trust us to kill the guy who you said to kill.
Right.
So that's going to be a hard no from me.
Right.
And
they have a reputation to maintain.
And the time period from Natath figuring out that Jakar is missing to her finding Jakar makes me love Natath even more.
Right.
And it also makes me think that maybe Natath knows more about this because she's like, oh, God damn it. He got taken by the assassin. Well, he's going to need secrecy. Bloop, bloop, bloop. All right, that tube is the one that's broken down. I'll just go there. That's probably where he is.
Yeah. And I wonder if there's like a second secret assassins guild.
And even more secret.
Like
there's layers of secrecy.
Maybe it's like part of the Narn government or something, like special forces or whatever. Like they're covert ops
Yeah.
division, and they are trained to be counter assassins.
Maybe that's Natath's whole purpose for being
Like
there.
in the Jason Bourne, the Bourne series books, where Jason Bourne is actually a counter assassin.
Yeah.
In the movies, he's actually an assassin, but in the books, he's a counter assassin.
I honestly think the entire purpose of this might be to show us that Jakar will literally not scream. Even knowing that screaming might bring help, he won't do it. He goes, I'd rather die than give you the satisfaction. Because Tapari's like, the pain must be overwhelming. Why are you holding it in? Don't worry, you can cry around me. It's fine, it's fine. And he's like, yeah, no, I'm never, ever, ever going to do that. And then Natath shows up. And this is really great, but I have a question. We have drone cameras. If we couldn't put fixed cameras in Babylon 5 for some reason.
Why don't we have like patrol drones?
We don't have drone sweeps. We don't have security cameras. We don't have. This feels like
we have security cameras when they're relevant for the plot.
This feels like a limitation of 90s thinking, because we wouldn't really have had widespread security cameras at the time. So that wouldn't even been anything that you would have considered.
Yeah, it was too expensive. It was prohibitively expensive to have just thousands of video cameras.
Yeah.
But nowadays, no, it's not. It would be expected that you have just a camera like every 10 feet.
There's an awareness of always being watched now.
Yeah.
And we didn't have that at this time period.
Mm-hmm.
So it probably wouldn't even have occurred to you watching this. Why don't they have? If these tubes are so accessible, why is there not some way of securing them? But whatever. The point of this is Natath is like, oh, hey, bud, I'm your backup. I'm here to make sure that you don't fail. And he's like, backup? Yeah, I wasn't told there was going to be a backup. And she's like, oh, no, the primary never is. You know the rules. And then she kicks Jakar around a bit. She's like, oh, pain giver's so crude. And he's like, what would you suggest? And she beats up Jakar.
A foot.
Like a lot. She pushes him. She tells him she beat him into another incarnation. I love Natath. And Tapari is like, oh, okay, so this is the part where I'm supposed to trust you now. Like, you kicked Jakar. Everyone wants to kick Jakar. That didn't make you special. Doesn't make me believe.
She didn't have to pretend.
And I'm about to pew pew you too. And she's like, oh no. Right when Jakar, actually she never, oh no. She just looks at him like, no, you're not. Right when Jakar gets up, throws off the pain givers, and then knocks Tapari out. And he's like, that hurt to Natath. And she's like, I had to disable the pain givers.
The best way to make it look like it hurt was to make it actually hurt.
She goes, to disable the pain givers, I had to hit them as hard as possible and as often as possible. I saved your life. And he's like, oh, and you didn't enjoy it? And she's like, I didn't say that.
Two things can be true.
Two things can be true. She's like, what are you going to do about Tapari? And then evil laugh, because he then wakes up in the departures area with Natath and Jakar. And they're like, oh, hi. I was really worried that it was going to be another day before you woke up. And he's like, another day? And they're like, oh, yeah, no, it's been 72 hours since you passed out. You totally missed your deadline, but don't worry, to make up for it, I put a substantial amount of money in your account back home. He's like, what? They're going to think you paid me off. And he's like, oh, no, they definitely do. And they're on their way here to kill you, like right now.
Any minute.
An hour, actually. They should be here in about an hour, which means you should probably run away. Because if they get here, they're going to kill you. Luckily, I'm safe, though, because it was only your commission, and this whole thing has been such a scandal, they'd honestly rather just move on and not have me advertise that I bought off one of their assassins. Oh, and here's your flight. You're going to want to get on it. With luck, they'll never find you, but if they do, you will know pain. And then Natath goes, you will know fear. And Jakar goes, and then you will die. Good day.
Boarding procedure.
That's your flight. I suggest you board quickly. With luck, they may never find you. But if they do, you will know pain.
And you will know fear.
And then you will die. Have a pleasant flight.
They just shove him off. Just such a good, the whole delivery of that whole scene is so good. And that's the end of
And
that
then
whole.
he slaps her on the back.
Yeah,
Like,
they're like, and they
good
walk up
teamwork.
like arm in arm, like da 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 da. Like we're so excited that we. And as they're walking by giggling, Sinclair's like, I mean, hey, Jakar, and Jakar's like, good day, Commander. And he's like, wow, he's really enjoying this religious festival thing. This is so
him and
good for
Catherine
everybody.
together.
He's seeing Catherine off on a survey run, and she's like, I'm only going to be gone a couple of days. I got to go survey this thing or I'm going to lose my commission. Like, I can't stay here and have sex with you for the next 7 days because it's been 3 days. Have they left the room? Did he take PTO? Doesn't matter. And he's like, oh, well, I'm going to be here when you come back. You're coming back? And she's like, yep, I'm not leaving this time. And he goes, me neither. And then she goes, did you figure out what you're going to do for Earth? Like for Earth's, because they left it up to him to come up with the programming.
Right? They don't have a person, like an event coordinator.
Yeah, no, they're like, you can do this, right, Sinclair? And he's like, I mean, fine, sure. Maybe he's not cooperative. Maybe he was like, I'll do it.
No, I'm not good. I don't want you to tell me what to do.
Right.
I'm going to figure out a good idea by myself.
And he's like, I don't know how I'm going to top the Minbari. There was fruit and singing and shit. I would be like, I don't know how I'm going to top the Centauri, but hey, Minbari, whatever. And Catherine's like, wait a minute, there was red fruit? And he's like, yeah. And she's like, oh, somebody maybe got married. Was there a significant exchange of looks? Did somebody roll their eyes up and make a yes face when they ate a fruit in front of you? And he's like, I mean, Delenn kind of did. And she's like, okay, well, I mean, somebody maybe got married the other day.
Depending on how seriously they took it.
Sinclair goes, maybe that's why Jakar was smiling funny. I didn't think Londo was his type. And she goes, do you think we'll get it right this time? And he goes, honestly, I have no idea. And she's like, fair enough. I respect that.
Yeah.
But we'll have fun in the meantime. And then we cut to all of the ambassadors waiting in this little area of the cargo bay. And they're like, is this seriously where we're going to have it? What's happening? And Ivana was like, I have no idea. I don't have any memory of the last 72 hours. I've been with Londo this entire time. And Londo's like, yes, obviously. We've been celebrating Centauri religion for all week. And they're getting ready to leave because they're like, what is happening? We don't know. Like, he didn't give us any details. There's no drums. There's no bells. There's no chanting. This can't be religion. What? There's no incense. What the fuck is happening? And then he's like, okay, Sinclair shows up. And he's like, okay, I'm ready. Let's go. And so they start walking down this long line of people. And he's like, this is an atheist. This is a Roman Catholic. This is a Zen Buddhist. This is a Muslim. This is a Jewish guy. This is someone from the Sioux faith.
This is Mr. Harris. He's an atheist. Father Crisanti, a Roman Catholic. Mr. Hayakawa, a Zen Buddhist. Mr. Rashid, a Muslim. Mr. Rosenthal, an Orthodox Jew. Running Elk of the Aglala Sioux faith. Father Papopoulos, a Greek Orthodox. Ojijiko of the Igbo tribe. Chukiak, a Yupik Eskimo. Sawa of the Hivaro tribe. Ms. Nkrumah, a Bantu. Ms. Chang, a Taoist. Mr. Blacksmith, an Aborigine. Ms. Yamamoto, a Shinto. Ms. Naijo, a Maori. Mr. Go, a Hindu. Ms. Nkrumah.
And it pans along this really long line of people in all different sorts of traditional dress, including a hippie, which I kind of wish we had gotten to that person to be like,
how are they going to introduce this person?
What religion does the tie-dye represent? Can you break that down for me? I love this ending so much. I have always loved this ending. I feel like it's the perfect ending.
Yeah.
If they had ignored it entirely, I maybe not would have noticed, but it wouldn't have been impactful in the least.
Mm-hmm.
Like we ignore the Narn entirely. We don't get a Narn religious ceremony. Right. We will later. So don't worry. If you're like, oh no, what do they believe in? It's just fine. Eventually we will get there. But the fact that they were like, okay, maybe we don't need to choose. Maybe we highlight the fact that we're diverse and that's a fundamental aspect of human culture would be great. And they do. And it is great. And I'm thankful for it every single time I watch it, which is why I was like, ooh, Parliament of Dreams is next. And then I was like, ooh, Parliament of Dreams is next, because I was waiting for this moment. And I'm glad we finally had it together. And I just, it aged really well, in my opinion. Not all 90s stuff does. But this did. So that's the end of that episode. A lot happened in that episode. Sinclair gets a steady girlfriend.
Yep.
Which I actually think we keep. Sinclair got his steady girlfriend.
Jakar got some backstory.
Jakar got backstory. He almost got murdered.
He and Natoth got to bond a little bit.
Yeah, I think that was it. I think it was character development and like a bonding moment. I think that's pretty much the entire purpose, if not to see a Narn wearing spectacles. And then we got Lanier. This was a lot happened this episode.
And we got a very tasteful portrayal of sharing Earth culture.
Yeah, it was good. And we got a little bit more Londo development, just slight, because it was his.
I mean,
let's
more...
celebrate genocide religion. It's okay. It's fine. Maybe not everything in this episode aged great, but that was, it's okay. It's a footnote in an otherwise great episode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you have anything you want to add?
I think that about covers it.
I know. Now we've got a lot of pieces on the board. I love that so much can happen in an episode without us including even half of the actual characters, because Dr. Franklin is not in this episode.
Nope.
Londo's kind of not really even in this episode.
Even Ivanova.
Ivanova's like tangentially in this episode.
Yeah,
Garibaldi
we
doesn't
see her
get
a couple times.
We can literally have 3 separate plot lines that don't even include the majority of the characters, because there's so many pieces to move around on this board.
Yeah.
And they're just going to build on top of each other. And it is probably why I love this show so much, because it never feels stale.
Mm-hmm.
Even sitting there watching it episode to episode, it doesn't make it bingeable. I would never describe this show as bingeable. You can sit and watch maybe 3 or 4 episodes at a time, and then you're like, I need a break. But it does make it age really well.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I love Forever Night just fine, but it's the same 3 characters over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And so you can't have a lot of complexity, but that's okay. But sometimes it's nice to have a buffet instead of a single meal.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we'll just leave it there, because we talked about it as we went along. Sometimes we get a big wrap up because we're doing more plot coverage than we are discussion. And sometimes we discuss as we go. And I feel like this was a discuss as we go. So we live for the one.
We die for the one.
Until next time, friends.
Bye.
Bye.